spent 2 years in court for only $2. I was walking home after staying at work really late. Walking through the bar scene, I saw a cab and was so tired I decided to take it home, the first time I'd ever decided to do so. Short, aggressive ride where he's tailgating, honking, swearing, and aggro as duck despite it being a sleepy city. Fare, $6.40. I give him $20 and ask for $12 back. Cabbie gives me $10 from a giant wad of money and says sorry, he doesn't have any ones. Okay, dude thinks I'm intoxicated because he picked me up outside of a bar, and he thinks he deserves a better tip even though the ride was like 3 minutes. I say, what do you mean you don't have any ones, you're a cabbie, and I just saw your giant wad of cash. He persists. I say no, you're driving me down the street to that pizza shop and we're getting change. He says he won't. When I ask, he refuses to give me his name, and then gives me a menacing get the F out of my cab, looking like he's going to punch me in the face. Dude's definitely a tough guy and pretty scary, think short, stocky henchman type with buzzed silver hair and a leather jacket, so I leave, but not before catching his cab number as he speeds off. Okay, it's the principle of the matter. This guy's doing this to intoxicated kids all night, and probably making a lot of money by intimidating and victimizing these customers of a public service. Duck that. I call the cab company and get my full $10 back, but it takes a bunch of harassment and several months to finally get it. Duck that. I call the cab company's director, who couldn't care less and who flat out told me he believed the cabbie's story over mine, so not only is this crap happening, but it's being enabled and the complaints aren't being registered. F that especially. I tell him that if he doesn't take any course of action whatsoever then I'd be forced to take it up with the city's Transportation Oversight Commission that oversees all this stuff. He basically dares me to do so. Okay, so I enter into this ridiculously arduous process, where after reading up on the local laws I write a major complaint to the Public Commission and request they be fined under certain articles. A couple months later I get a response letter. Cab company hires this sleazy butt lawyer who claims I'm lying about everything and had all this malicious intent. Claims I demanded ones, and the cabbie didn't immediately procure them but then did seconds later, and at that point I was so fuming mad that I wanted to exact revenge. Calls my character and credibility into question completely. The letter was so amateur and there were so many transparent lies in it that it was both laughable and sad. So I go to my preliminary hearing, which I took to mean was just like filling out paperwork, or at most a private deposition or something. Nope, everyone's there, including the cabbie, the bedraggled secretary who sent my refund, the cab company's director, the sleazy lawyer, a court reporter, and a judge. Ridiculous cheap suits all around for the cab entourage. The in-person sleaziness of the lawyer did not disappoint. Think bad pinstripe suit and pink tie, slicked back hair, and pencil mustache, all resting on a sweaty and anxious fat man whose only apparent mode in trial is a combination of snideness and faux suspicion. The cabbie's giving me threatening looks during the whole thing, and I'm frankly a little scared he's going to kick my butt afterward. As a bonus, the judge is relatively young, extremely polite, thoughtful, level-headed, and patient. We give our stories. Cabbie gives this really terribly acted story of how I intimidated him into getting more ones, become furious, etc., but he can't even keep his facts together and keeps stumbling over his obviously rehearsed lines. Sleazy lawyer tries to poke holes in my very simple and coherent story like it's a Hardy Boys novel. It was dark, you couldn't have seen the denominations of his money. It's the cheesiest ducking thing you've ever seen. Meanwhile I'm trying to cross-examine him, while basically learning on the job how to be a hack lawyer at a crappy municipal hearing, and I even take a few jabs at the cabbie for lying on the stand that were met with various objections. You could cut the tension between me and this cabbie with a knife, and I made a lot of awkward mistakes because of that, but overall it went pretty well. A funny mistake I remember is that the lawyer made some objection, and I butted in and said that's not even a good point, and the judge cracked a smile in agreement and then told me I could not be subjective during the hearing. Judge makes a ruling a few months later, noting that the cabbie was clearly not credible, and orders cab company to pay a $1,500 civil penalty to the city for various infractions, fraud, not providing reasonable service, and not identifying himself, if I recall. Sweet, I think. But then, months later, lawyer issues an exception to this ruling, which I didn't know could occur, at around 9 p.m. the night it's due. The exception brings up all these reasons that they shouldn't be fined. For example, there was precedent for this fine before, and also attacks my credibility once again regarding details of the story, basically threatening to undo the ruling if I didn't respond. I get notice of this filing via email and frantically write up an official response to exceptions, which was required to address these issues, and I submit it just under midnight. Months later, I think a total of 1.5 years since the incident after several filings and correspondences, judge examines the new material and rules that the $1,500 fine stands. Got any ones now, butthole? My entitled daughter got a tattoo behind my back and refused to apologize, so I sold the car that I bought her and now she won't talk to me. I raised my daughter to be an angel in the making, and up until this event, she was literally perfect. When she was little, she was scouted to work as a child actress in commercials. The money she made from that basically became her college fund, and I never had to contribute $1. But she didn't stop there. She worked hard and got really good grades, and all the teachers would praise her for her good behavior. She would also help out with chores at the house. I would tell her to clean the dishes or mow the lawn, and she would make sure to do it on time. When she entered high school, she told me that she wanted to buy her dream car before entering college, and got a job so she could start saving money. While working there, she met her current boyfriend. I never had a problem with this because I had met him before, and knew that he had good character. However, a few months after that, she came up to me and said she wanted to get matching tattoos with her boyfriend. I immediately denied that notion because there is no way I'm letting my sweet daughter stain her body with ink at such a young age. She argued that it was just a small star on her ankle, and no one would even see it. But it wasn't a matter of seeing it or not, it was a matter of integrity. I told her that she is never getting a tattoo, and that's final. Luckily, the values I had instilled in our daughter held strong, and she dropped the topic. I urged her to focus on school and saving money for her car, because I had a surprise gift planned for her in the near future. After a couple of years, she managed to save up half the money required for her dream car. She was very disheartened because she wouldn't be able to afford the car before college began, and would have to keep working. But little did she know, I was about to make her day. I took the money she had saved and doubled it by matching the amount with my own money, and went to the dealership. The next day, I greeted her with the keys to her dream car, and she was ecstatic. She thanked me for hours and said she loved the car. This was actually just weeks before her 18th birthday, so I guess it also counted as her birthday gift. I thought she would be grateful and perhaps even do something in return. But never did I imagine that my daughter had the capability to deceive me. On her 18th birthday, she went out in the morning and returned in the evening. I was understandably worried and asked her where she had been. Without missing a bet, she goes, "Oh, I was just getting that tattoo that I told you about. I'm an adult now, it's my body, and I paid for it with my own money, so there shouldn't be a problem." I was absolutely livid. This was the first time my daughter had gone against my wishes, and ended up doing something horrible to her body. I asked her why she didn't ask for permission, but she kept repeating that she was an adult now. But after looking at the horrific tattoo on her ankle, I couldn't just keep quiet. I told her that as long as she's under my roof, she is going to follow my rules. Now, while the tattoo was permanent and the damage was already done, it doesn't mean that she can't reform herself. I told her that she needed to apologize to me for violating my trust, and then break up with her boyfriend. I knew that my daughter on her own would never get an idea like this, so she was clearly being manipulated, and I wanted her to be free. But to my absolute shock, she refused to do any of it. She claimed that she's leaving for college in 2 weeks and won't be under my roof anymore, so I can't force her. At that moment, I realized that I had neglected punishing my daughter throughout her childhood, and it had led me to this. No matter how hard I tried, she wouldn't realize how badly she had messed up by tattooing her body. So I needed to, for the first time in her life, punish her properly. I looked out the window and saw her car, which gave me the perfect opportunity. I had put up 50% of the money for it, and technically I was the one who bought it from the dealership, so I figured I had ownership over it. I called the guy I had bought it from, and asked if I could return it. I would only get 90% of the money back, but I agreed. The next day, a tow truck showed up at our house and began taking the car away. It was at this point that my daughter realized what was going on, and rushed outside to stop the truck. But I ran after her and explained that this was her punishment for lying to me and deceiving me. She yelled, "This is my dream car. You can't do this. Please, give it back to me." She even went as far as to stand in the way of the truck. But her begging me while feeling the consequences of her actions was irrelevant. I slipped $100 into the pocket of the driver, and told him to take off after dragging my daughter away from the road. She just started sobbing and fell on her knees. I felt bad for her, but this was a necessary action. I told her that I'll give her money back and went back inside. The thing that confuses me is that ever since then, my daughter has refused to talk to me. In fact, she doesn't even acknowledge my presence around the house. I did give her her money back, so she technically didn't even lose anything. But I think that she needs to realize on her own that this could have been prevented if she just apologized properly and listened to me, instead of making a scene. My ex dumped me to get her kitty pounded by sweaty frat guys. Now she's begging for me back. We were high school sweethearts and each other's first everything. I thought she was going to be the one. However, she had other plans. After a week of partying in college, she came home and broke up with me. Her reasoning? That while she loves me with all of her heart and I am the one she wants to be with forever and marry while she is in college, she does not want to be tied down and needed to be able to have her fun. She even went on to tell me that she wanted to make sure I knew she would always practice safe intimacy for our future together. I begged her not to do this and that under no circumstance would I ever consider this okay. She said that over time I'd understand and to stop being a weak little b-word. She even made me promise to use protection as well. 2 weeks later, she called me and asked me if I stopped acting like an immature brat. Before I even said anything, she started telling me all about how she got pounded by 4 guys, 2 of which she did at the same time. I broke down when she told me this. She said she did not want to hurt me so she wouldn't be telling me any more about what she does. I told her that I had no desire to talk with her anymore, period. That I was willing to work on things before she slept with other people, but that was the end of it for me. She said once again that I was being immature and that she would just wait for me to contact her when I was grown up enough to understand that there is a difference between intimacy and love. That was the last time I spoke to her until about 1 month ago when she moved back home and showed up at my house one night acting like we had been together and not apart for 3 years. She did not expect nor appreciate my reaction to her showing up. I opened the door and there she was with a big smile on her face. She immediately asked to come in and I said I would come outside, which obviously caught her off guard. I asked what she wanted and she said, and I quote, "Well, that's a hell of a way to greet someone you love." To which I told her that she was delusional and that whatever love I had for her died the day she told me she had already started having intimacy with other men. She honestly had a very confused look on her face and then said, and I quote again, "Are you still uptight about all of that?" and then said, "I would have thought by now you would have grown up about that." I told her that not only was I not over it, that I would never be over it other than to be over us. At which time she proceeds to say to me, "You mean to tell me you are throwing away everything that we are together because of some stupid physical issue?" I know we love each other and are meant to be together, so how do we fix this? I was just dumbstruck. How can one person be this stupid? I asked her what I was throwing away. We have not spoken in almost 3 years other than via text, and even then it was her texting me and not me replying. She left very disappointed, and that should have been the end of it. But here is the kick in the butt. I have now been inundated by friends, her family, and hell, even some of my family wanting to know why I was throwing away someone so special. I ended up telling my family members the truth, and after they heard about it they quickly recanted and told me to tell her to F off. But to her family, I just said she dumped me years ago and we hadn't been together for almost 3 years. This came as a shock to them, as she had been telling them all along that we were still a couple, and even when she was home on breaks would tell them we planned on marrying. At first, they didn't believe me that we hadn't seen each other in years, and I'm still not sure they do. I told my parents and they suggested that I should just go along with what she says because she's my one true love. My friends are even saying the same. They know the truth and yet they think I'm being weird about all of this. They said when you are young you are supposed to play the field, but if you love someone you know that in the end, you will be together. Am I wrong?